Dude, I didn't even see you. It's huge.
Right to that white door.
Right behind him. There are some.
We've got wool knickers.
Would you like me to do that? I could do that.
The last time I remember.
Story about bloodstains
Bear attack.
from Tasmanian devils.
You lived here. This is his pool. Lee, have a party.
I know, you have to be damn thing.
Yeah, tough to get up every morning.
I thought I kind of looked like Dean Martin.
Had a lot of fun, and I was really, I had, I figured they said there were 12, and you were all relatives. Oh, it was terrific. I just enjoyed it. Craig guy came and he said, you need to hurry this up. And
Yeah, probably the pay on the email. It was so you got to the fish one to take the show. That was like terrifying. She just wanted, you're small enough, you can write. Did you get into the show?
yeah, it would have been good. Yeah, he had a big old trailer and he got the cows in there.
Love isn't something that we have. It's something independently. The West Star.
Because it was the only school in the Western United States, so from a tray to say, hey, the boys, because men can make and
Both daughters have that.
those daughters have masters 24/7. That I'm telling
She
her,
puts up with me.
you're not hard to put up with.
I married her, and she didn't know how to cook.
Ken and Carolyn Whitty are celebrating 50. Dear Mom and Dad, it's hard to believe that time can fly so fast. You're married 50 years. We can party at long last. We're also proud to note this wondrous occasion. Folks, this is a Whitty invasion. Hey, let's gloat. We'll never forget that wondrous story of how you met at Oregon State. How he thought she was cute and curvy on their first date. You married in 1961. It was a warm September day. We also heard how the day begun when Dad got lost on his way. Back some half a century ago during your honeymoon, on your VW it said, "Watch Oregon grow." And it did soon. Dad worked in fish and game, driving jet boats was his fame. Walking rivers and streams, we teased him about his green jeans. He loves hunting and fishing, he's tagged a bunch. And he loves watching basketball as much as he hates the shopping. Meanwhile, Mom was teaching and coaching. Around her neck was a whistle. She stayed young at heart, barely aging. Our boyfriends were afraid of her just a little. She also loves to hunt, but antiques are her crusade, or dressing in costume and driving mules in the parade. They've been to many places and have seen all kinds of wonder, including white sandy beaches and even traveled down under. Always Dad wears his boots and sunglasses. Even when it's raining, Mom drives her mule to pick up packages. Watching them is entertaining. But they've got a soft spot when the subject is their grandkids. They like to tell stories, brag and dot, and give kudos to the kiddos. The fact is Mom and Dad see those kids as golden light. Austin and Aubrey, in their hearts, are shining bright. That covers it, dear parents. To you from all of us, we wish you lots more joy, oh yes, and peace and health and thus. For Dad, more years of fish that have might. For Mom, more parades with ribbons that are blue. And both more joy and delight and endless laughter and smiles from you two.
I'd just like everybody to stand who's been here, who's been married 5 years. You've been married 5 years, just please stand. Or more. Or more.
5 years or more.
5 years or
5
more.
years standing, right?
Just standing too.
Dad, you've been married more than 5 years.
More than
He's tired. He's tired.
Okay, now. Okay, 25. We're at 30? 30. 35. 40. 45. Wow, there are a lot of people. 50. Okay. Okay.
It's not your party.
It's not your party. Stay this long. Mom and Dad. Mom, Dad, you need to. Congratulations to Ken and Carolyn and Minnie. This toast is for you, you guys. This is 50 years is a long time. So let's toast to that. Congratulations, Meryl. Yes, congratulations.
Frank? Oh. Frank Stein was in our wedding. And Pat Worrell, not that anymore. Nobody ever gets a married name, they're always under. Yeah. Was also in the wedding.
I'm Daryl Whitty. Ken's dad and my dad were brothers, and we weren't together a lot in the growing up years, but after everything was all said and done, we've come to be very good friends and nice company.
And Daryl, where do you live compared to where Ken and Carolyn live?
Oh, down the hill about, as the crow flies, about a half a mile, but round the way it's about 2 miles, mile and a half or 2 miles, I don't know. It's just.
And how they have used you to take care of the mules?
Not too often, but some. It's interesting. Let's put it that way. Like I say, 4 pages of how to take care of the mules, a certain amount of applesauce, and a certain amount of this, and a certain amount of grain, and a certain amount of medicine. And it's been interesting, but we've enjoyed each other. And
are you the one with the bull?
not the bull this year.
Not the bull
but
this
I
year.
have loaned them bulls over the past years, yeah.
And I noticed for the party, Dad has a black eye. Were you involved with that?
I hate to admit it, but I was. And we went out to get a bull. And that was just last week, I think it was. And I asked Ken, I said, well, what can I do to help? And he says, just stay behind the pickup. So I did. And the cows come by, and Ken come by, and then the cows would go out of sight, and Ken would go out of sight, and pretty soon I heard a big bang up there, and I looked up the hill, and it was about 150 yards up there, and I don't move very fast anymore, and so I could see that the four-wheeler was sitting there, and Ken wasn't on it, and I couldn't see Ken. So I walked up there, and when I got up there, Ken was just starting to move. And I says, Ken, are you hurt? Nope. And I says, well, have you got any broken bones? Nope. And that's all I could get out of him was nope or yep. That's all he would say. And he kept looking for his sunglasses. He says, my sunglasses, I can't find my sunglasses. I said, well, the lens are there under you. And anyway, when we got home, I was afraid to let him drive home. I didn't know because I knew there was something wrong. And the longer we were away, I noticed that he was getting a little bit better. And when we got down on the road, I said, well, don't forget to turn your electric fence back on, Ken. And so he went over there and turned it on. And when we started down the road, he drove just fine and got on the highway and everything was fine. And when we got home, he says, Daryl, I don't remember going down the hill at all. And I noticed that he had blood above his eye and on his wrist. And I said, well, are you hurting anywhere? He said, well, right here. And then after I got home, I called him and asked him how he was feeling. He said, fine. Then I called the next morning and got a hold of Carolyn. And I said, well, how's Ken feeling? Well, he's stiff and sore.
He rolled the four-wheeler.
He rolled the four-wheeler. And it bent the handlebars pretty good. But I knew it didn't go over him because he wasn't hurting that bad. But Carolyn told me today that she thought he had a rib that was cracked. But he's tough.
Yeah, he's tough. Yeah, he's tough.
Yeah, he is, and we enjoy each other. So.
And you and he are cousins.
Yeah, first cousins.
Cousins.
Our dads were brothers. Yeah.
Mary Alice Ridgway, and we met Ken and Carolyn in 1974 during the Bob Packwood campaign. And we have Bob Packwood to thank for our friendship. My story took place in 1993, and I can't remember if I called Carolyn or Carolyn called me, but they were doing the sesquicentennial wagon train from Missouri to Oregon City. And however it started out, we ended up riding 3 days with the wagon train, and we started in La Grande and we ended up in Pendleton. But I didn't have a horse, and she had the horse, and I think her name was Duchess, and she was Duchess. Yes, she was a little old, but she was just perfect for the wagon train. But I had a saddle that didn't fit her, and on the second day, she had a terrible, terrible saddle sore. And I mean, it was really bad. And so we didn't get to finish the whole ride. But what we did was we talked to the wranglers, and they said the very best way to fix a saddle sore like that was to spread bacon grease on it. So we hauled our horses down to my house in Pendleton, and we went out and bought a pound of bacon, and we cooked up that bacon, and then we put eggs in the bacon grease the way Carolyn likes to make them, and we spread the bacon grease all over the eggs, you know. And then we took the bacon grease out and put it on the horse, and we ate the bacon and we ate the eggs. Did it work? It did work. It was good. A pound of bacon grease on that saddle sore just did wonders. Yeah. And the bacon and eggs just did wonders for us too. Yeah. And that's just one story. Yeah. We were going to tell a story about throwing her over the bed the wedding night. Because we laughed at that. We've told that story more often.
Yes,
just funny. It's a great story.
It is a great story. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
My name is Eldon Hyatt. I'm Kenny's and Carolyn's brother-in-law through his sister who passed away. But the story that I wanted to tell you was when they moved into the house by the cemetery.
Yeah.
And I worked for Beacons Moving and Storage at the time, and I went to town and got the truck, and I went up and was helping to move. And Ken was helping me load furniture, and pretty soon he got further apart and further, and I couldn't see him. And finally I asked Carolyn where Kenny was, and she said, he went to lay down. I said, what's the matter? She said, well, he's sick. I said, has he got the flu or what's wrong? She said, no, he's sick. And I said, well, what's wrong with him? He's got the 30-year-old sickness, she said. It was his birthday, and he turned 30 years old and thought it was the end of the world.
Couldn't get out of bed.
Couldn't get out of bed. He was totally physically sick. So that was my story.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
So, I'm Carolyn's cousin. And she was always the older cousin, so I never really got to know her very much growing up. But I was just talking with Ron and remembering coming to visit Carolyn and Ken in Enterprise when you were just born. You might have been almost a year old or something. And I learned how to make sauerkraut. I had never seen cabbages so big. And I think Ken was away at National Guard camp or something. And he came back with this whole box full of eggs. And they were left over from, he cooked for the Guard. And Carolyn and I were trying to figure out what to do with all those eggs. And we tried to make an angel food cake from scratch because it took something like 20 egg whites. And we screwed it up and got egg yolk in the egg whites, and we had this cake that was about this tall. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
My mom tells a story about you coming for Chief Joseph Days. Do you remember coming there for Chief Joseph Days?
I remember coming for
I think before you were married, maybe?
Oh, yeah, definitely before I was married. So, because Carolyn's like 12 years older than I am. So, I don't, that might have been the same trip.
Might have been.
Might have been the same trip. And I got the flu. And that was in a little house that wasn't where they lived in Enterprise all the time. It was before that. It was way out in the country, a little farmhouse. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that house?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Oh, it's special. I wouldn't miss it. I just wish Mom had gotten here. She would have been in her element.
Loved it. She would have loved it. Yeah.
My mom always really was proud of Carolyn. They were very similar personality and body types and all sorts of things. You could see the family resemblance. Your mom talks about people at Oregon State calling her Julianne because they knew my mom.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yes.
My mom wishes him well. So.
I would say I'm so happy that Ken and Carolyn moved next door to my parents because I've known Cynthia and Tina since they were like 2 and 6 months or whatever. They're like my sisters, and Ken and Carolyn are kind of like my second set of parents. Carolyn would always make me call her Mrs. Whitty as the PE teacher, and I hated that because sometimes I would slip in Carolyn and she would let it slide because she wouldn't realize it, because I called her Carolyn at home and it seemed ridiculous to call her Mrs. Whitty at school because she wasn't Mrs. Whitty, she was Carolyn. I remember going wood cutting with your dad. I always felt like I was always included in everything that you guys did. And I have my signature ring at the doorbell 3 times. And when Carolyn was showing their old house a couple months ago, I was home visiting my dad, and the door was closed, and I ran over there and dinged the doorbell 3 times, and I heard Carolyn squeal and go, "Oh my God, it's our neighbor," and it was me. I don't know, I just have great memories of Ken putting up the tent in the backyard, the big canvas tent. It would get so hot in the summer, but then during the night we'd sleep out there with my puppy and all of us. We would raid the freezer every day and eat like 3 popsicles that were out there on the freezer in the breezeway. Picking raspberries, just everything. And Carolyn she'd always get frustrated because we were fighting, and I remember she'd always say, "Settle your own arguments." And it was so irritating because we wanted someone to intervene and she never would, because she would be reading her books and she did not want to be bothered. And she just always treated me like part of the family. I never wanted to let her down. She would always tell me if she didn't like something, or if she did, if she approved or she didn't. So yeah, I love them.
When your dad was talking, he also told the story of building the playhouse.
Oh yeah, they kept telling me, I think it was a tool shed or something, because it was a Christmas present, and he was building this playhouse out in the backyard, and I got it at Christmas. And he said that it was a tool shed. So then on Christmas, we went out there, and they're like, "It's a playhouse for you." And we decorated it all up, and we'd have little restaurants in there. We played in there all the time, continuously. It was just, there was no like line between our houses. You know, we were just always at each other's houses, playing in the pool, like putting the plastic down and sliding on it. And I had a wonderful childhood, and I can't imagine.
We were lucky.
It wouldn't have been the same without you guys.
We were lucky.
Yeah.
Yes, we were. Thank you for coming.
Larry Parsons. I've known Ken all my life, practically. We went all the way through school together. Carolyn, I didn't meet her until after they were married. Some of the highlights that I did with Ken, he took us up the Snake River once in this jet boat. That was great. And we just have been friends all our lives. And we go over and see him usually about once a year. They got a beautiful place. As you know, you took some pictures up there, right? Yeah. Anyway, one of the stories I wanted to relate was Ken always has in the past used me to go up to Alaska, and he stops at our house. We take him to the airport and then bring his vehicle back to our place and then go get him when he comes back. Well, one year he came up and I took him to the airport, and I never used his pickup except this one time. I didn't have any way to get to the barber shop, so I told Diane I'm just going to drive it over to the barber shop, which was less than a mile away, about a mile and a half, I guess. And I got over there, got my hair cut, I came back, and I decided to go up to my neighbor's house, which is right across the street. and he's on a hill. So I parked Ken's pickup and walked in the house to talk to this friend of mine. And pretty soon the guy, my friend said, "What's that pickup going down the road?" And I looked, and there's Ken's pickup. It made the corner down the driveway, across Brookdale Road, which is a very, very busy road. It dropped off. It didn't go down the road. It went off the 4-foot wall, dropped onto the road, then went across the road, dropped off another 4-foot wall. It only did about $5,000 worth of damage, but it was still drivable. So anyway, I didn't know what the heck I was going to tell Ken. I was a little upset, you know. So anyway, when we got up there and picked him up the next day or so it was, you know, and he says, I said, "You know, I almost didn't get to come in your rig to pick you up." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I think I wrecked it." Well, anyway, it did. He took it on home. He could get it home.
That's
and
good.
Then took it over to Lewiston and they worked on it. I think they did about $5,000 or $6,000 worth of work on it, but some of it was some he just wanted to have done anyway. But it did quite a bit of damage.
What was he like in high school?
Quiet. Yeah. One thing that somebody, I think it was Eldon, related it to as soon as I walked in the door. He said, "You remember when you used to go over to Ken's and visit with these folks and him, and all of a sudden you get up and go to bed?" I said, "Yeah, he hasn't changed much." Because he used to always just, when it's time to go to bed, early. I mean, this wasn't like late or anything, but yeah. He's been a little better, though, when we've been over there. He may be asleep on the couch, but he hasn't got up and gone to bed. But anyway, he's been a good friend.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you
We
very
enjoyed
much.
it.
I'm Darcy Ridgway, and my parents and the Whitties used to work for Bob Packwood, and that's how we all met when I was probably 8 or younger. Every summer we would go up to Trout Haven, and we would always go visit the Whitties. They're some of my favorite people.
I know, we kind of grew up together, didn't we? And we did a lot of basketball Pendleton tournaments too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And picking raspberries and playing with Barbies. I remember that. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Anyway, I wish them the best.
Do you get emotional because you think about those good memories? Yeah. Growing up and...
Yeah, and some of my very favorite people. You included. So, congratulations. Thanks.
I'm Bob Ridgway from Pendleton, and our introduction to Ken and Carolyn came through politics. And it was a meeting at a Bob Packwood function in Portland, where we took your mom down to meet him. And your dad had already been down there. And so we were coming home and we started hearing Ken and Carolyn stories. And actually one of the first stories that we heard was the honeymoon story of I saved you from the railroad, because that had been after your dad had been down in meetings in Bend all week, and they met after the Packwood party. Your dad was tired, he went to bed first. Your mom went to bed, and your dad rolled over and said to her, "I'm sorry, I don't have any money." And that was our introduction to Ken and Carolyn. We had great times with them on the river and visiting you guys ever since. So, congratulations.
Thank you. You were also involved with Tina's accident. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I just helped fight through some of the litigation, and it worked out. And it was a tough thing to do, but we did it, got some, so
I know they really
it was great.
appreciate it.
And it was money well spent, we can all see.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dick Cowing, and my wife was Carolyn's roommate at Oregon State in Sackett dorm. And we've known her all that time. And you were mentioning the beach house. We have a beach house at Rockaway Beach. And Carolyn and Ken and the girls, I don't know of anyone else. I see your name in the book. And it's right off the beach, a half a block, full view of the ocean and the lake behind it. And we've been coming up here when the kids were little. on our way to Wallowa Lake. And we would stop and stay at the Whitties. And actually, first place we stopped and stayed at was that cabin in Joseph on the lake. I think they burned it down. Not you guys, but anyway.
They did tell the story about that.
And then when they moved to the house up on the hill, we were there a couple of times too. And then when the kids grew up, we quit coming up, and it's been 50 years.
So I am going to ask Mike a question. Because when I was talking to Mike earlier, he talked about an early horseback trip that he made with my mom and dad, and which has kind of changed all the trips after that. So Mike, maybe could you just talk a little bit about that trip?
Well, we were in the Snake River country, and it was cold. It was after the Thanksgiving cow hunt, and it was cold. I brought my sleeping bag and stuff, and Ken says, "You got all your stuff?" I said, "Yep, ready to go." So we go. It was cold. I froze for 7 days. When I got home, I told my wife, I said, "I'll never do that again. I'll never get cold again." I went and bought me the best stuff I could afford. Bought me a good sleeping bag. Yeah, it was a fun trip, and I'd love to do it again. But next time I'll have the right stuff.
Yeah, so you have the right gear when you go fishing now.
I have the right stuff now. Cause I watched Ken. I said, he puts his boots on, I put my boots on. I see him packing his rain gear, I pack mine. He puts it on, I put it on. Figured if he's not going to get cold and wet, I'm not either.
So we've also had some time together when we have spent time at Wallowa Lake. And there was a time when I think you said something about stealing some of that firewood that we went after.
Yeah, we'd always stop and see Aunt Carolyn and Ken, and we always stole a few pieces of firewood for the first day of camp and fire. And one time I forgot my sleeping bag, so we thought, well, let's stop at Ken's and get one. Well, we stopped, we stole firewood, and we left. First night I slept in a blue tarp wrapped up on the picnic table. Had to go back to town the next day, stole more firewood, and got a sleeping bag.
Yeah, we had a lot of Thanksgivings together too.
We had a few. It was fun times.
Yep. And Scooter.
And that's Grandma Scooter. I remember riding it all over town Elgin.
And your dad, after Thanksgiving, he would make us run around the block before we could have pie. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
It was cold. Sometimes we were barefoot.
I remember it being cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us do this at your house,
Oh,
too.
not a problem. We enjoyed having everybody here.
Thank you. Ted was on the video already.
I said my piece.
Anything that you wish that you would have said that you didn't say?
No, because it's all documented now, so I'm not saying another word.
Where's the next trip?
We are going to Antigua, which is east of U.S. Virgin Islands in the Caribbean, in February for 2 weeks.
It's going to be a good time.
It always is a good time.
How's Dad with the snorkeling?
Well, he floats, let's put it that way. He probably still has his cowboy boots on at the same time, too. I don't look.
What did you say? Something about can't take the cowboy?
Can't take the cowboy out of the country.
Yeah.
It's true. Just can't think of a thing to say. Congratulations on 50 years. Hope I can make it with your daughter.
How long have we been married?
17.
17. Did you ever think we'd be married 17?
I don't know.
It's kind of a loaded question, isn't it?
Definitely.
I kind of like this microphone.
I have to go home with you.
I kind of like this. Do you remember at my dad's retirement party? Do you remember what you said at my dad's retirement party?
About the boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were taunting him as the great white jet boat driver, and then he gets up and tells a story about his great white jet boat floating down the river without him, and this was right after I told him that he could use my boat anytime he wanted, and I changed my mind.
Yes. And then I was also thinking about when you meeting my mother, and wondering about like how I might look when I get to be that age. Do you remember?
I remember the first time I saw your mother, and I told you that if you looked like her when you were her age, that was okay with me.
Yep, I remember
I don't
that.
want you to look like your dad.
No. And then there's the Brussels sprout story.
Oh, man. Carolyn invites us over. Anytime we come over to Carolyn and Ken's place, Carolyn has a list of stuff for me to do because Ken can't fix anything. Or Ken won't fix anything. Anyway, she gives me a list. Actually, Jay was with me too, and we weed whacked their quarter-mile long driveway all day. Sweated, worked all day long. Figured she'll feed us pretty good. We sit down at the table, and she brings out a tray of broiled, burned Brussels sprouts.
Yes.
It was brutal. It was the worst thing I ever ate.
That was bad.
I didn't eat it.
He works all day and says, Brussels sprouts? Yes. You've had to do a few chores at their house too, Ted.
I have chosen to do the chores. I have not been requested I need to do this. So it's either computer related or mowing the lawn lately. So
Yep.
I hear you tried to convert Ken to riding horseback in Birkenstocks too.
that is an impossible task that will never happen. I converted him to bright colored Bermuda shorts. I am not going to convert him
with cowboy boots.
With cowboy boots. I can't get the Birkenstocks.
Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Mike, thanks for letting us do this at your house.
Oh dear. It's been so long.
It's been so long, yeah.
It's been quite a while. We've been known each other. I met him down at Oregon State. We were all doing work in the garden, not in the yard, but where you get the food.
Yeah, like the cafeteria?
Yeah, cafeteria. Yeah, and so I spent a year working in that place. And then I did other things after that.
Yes.
But it was fun. It was fun getting to know the people that were there and where they were, and some of them, lived out here, and I live in Salem, for Pete's sake.
Are you the one that grew up near where West Salem currently is?
Where?
West Salem?
Yes.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So will you talk a little bit about that house and the orchard and how Mom would go there for like Thanksgivings and some holidays? I think she talked a little bit about that.
Okay. We had a house up on the hills on the east side, on the west side of Salem, and we when there was school, we'd climb on the bus. The bus would take us into town and get us at the proper place, because there were several different churches, several different schools, that we could have gone to, and we stuck to those schools. And then after school, we would get back on the bus, and we'd go all the way out and climb over the hill and go back down and get into our various homes going down the hill, which was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Because we were clear up on the top of the hill, of that.
And actually, I think that Rex and Stacy live very close to where your family house was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They did. They did.
Is it a peach orchard? Was it a peach orchard?
No, we had a cherry orchard, but when that property was sold, my brother had to sell it. Then they tore it down. They tore everything down and started with a school. And I still don't understand why they put a school way up that high, for kids. For high school kids.
Yeah, it's West Salem High School now.
It sure is.
And it's populated, and there's lots of homes around there.
Oh, way too many. Thank you.
Yeah.
That really broke my heart when they did it. But we were living out in Maryland by that time, and so I didn't have to worry about it as much. But still,
yeah,
I missed it.
Yeah,
I miss it. And every time we go out that area, I go, let's go up and look out over the city.
Yeah,
because it was a good place to look out over the city.
They do have Rex and Stacy have a nice view now. They do.
I think if you
And Frank
got four
Deshawn, I worked
designs,
with Ken up at Enterprise.
not excluding this one, that's
The
pretty.
year they were married and ended up going down to the
Yeah,
wedding
four
with them.
designs, then you could do a dozen ornaments, and so they repeated 3.
Another year around Ken, and then I moved to Idaho and worked for Fish and Game over there.
What was he like when he was in college?
Because this is just too.
Did you like your classes?
Right.
You know, it's
Not very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It blade's got to
No,
come in
it's-
out. And besides that, if you break that right there, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, you start over.
With something to get through,
Yeah.
like everything else.
That saw will give a little jump, unless you're holding out hard and tight.
He said, I said, that's too specific, you know, that was here.
It's tough to remember.
Yeah.
It's a long time, 50 years.
I can't
is a
remember
long time.
yesterday, let alone that far back.
How long have you been married?
49 years.
49. Yeah.
I'm Carol Spears. I was Carol Whitty, and Kenny's father and my father are brothers. Charles Whitty was my father, the oldest brother. And I had a lot of fun visiting them and seeing their new home and everything. But they were kind of embarrassed because the pickup had rolled down the hill into the deck.
Oh, when you.
And it had just happened the first time I was there. And but no, I've known Kenny ever since. I mean, he was a new baby because we'd go up to visit, and Laurel and Mildred were married a long time before they had Kenny and Carolyn, and we were so happy. I mean, Kenny and Linda. We were so happy that they had children because they were really good to us. So I think that's probably plenty.
Thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome. And thank you. It's been fun to see everyone.
How long have you been married?
62 years.
62 years.
Yes.
Congratulations to you, too.
Oh, well, thank you. Bill and I are, I'm 83 and he's 84. And we're still going strong.
Yes, you are. She grabs the microphone. She's the only person who's actually grabbed the microphone.
You guys, she wants to great job.
And you're going to take control, aren't you? You have to hold it a certain way.
This is my bossy daughter. You did a very good job,
Oh,
Susan.
thank you.
Very good
It's
job.
fun. It's
Very
a
good
lot
job.
of fun. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to see everybody.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
Did you ever think it'd be 50 years?
No. No. But now I plan on the next 30.
Yeah.
I'll be 100 years old. That'd be perfect.
Yep. We'll all come to that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been good. Mike and Betty have done a great job, too.
They've done a great job.
Yeah.
Great job.
It's been
Thanks.
fun. Thanks.
I'm Case.
What's your last name?
Hyatt.
And how old are you?
10 years old.
And who are your mom and dad?
Betty and Mike Hyatt.
And how do you know Ken and Carolyn?
My dad was friends with them.
Yeah.
And my mom were friends with them too. And so I'm friends with them because my mom and dad are friends with them.
Yeah. Do you remember going to their house?
Yeah.
What do you remember about their house?
They had a stream or a pond in their front yard. And they have a pasture and some mules and horses.
Yeah. And what about that bearskin rug?
Oh, yeah. I remember that. And their house is big.
Has a lot of elk horns and
mounts.
Yeah. And this is your house with your pool?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
It's good right there.
I'm supposed to be helping. I'm cutting the cake and delivering.
Okay, I'm Aubrey Grieve.
And who are your mom and dad?
Tina and Jay.
And what's your relationship to Ken and Carolyn?
I'm their granddaughter.
Yeah. And when you think about their house, what do you think about?
It's really big.
It's really big. And they have bearskin rug.
Yep.
Have they made you do chores?
Yeah.
Like what kind of chores?
They made me weed their waterfall, and there was a whole bunch of ants. and they got all over me, and it was awful.
Yeah. You camped? You stayed in a tent?
Yep, in a cot, in a tent.
What about driving?
Yeah, and I always drive her mule in the parade. And we dress up in costumes that are really crazy. She has so many of them, but it's a blast trying to pick, like, choosing your costume and everything.
It's fun to drive.
Yeah.
And you want to say maybe congratulations for 50 years?
Congratulations for 50 years.
Great. Thank you. What else you'd want to say? What are you thinking, Rex?
I think that Russ did a great job with our movie, with making the movie. I thought that was a fabulous job. I was getting a little worried and thought I'd get tearful, and I didn't at all.
Yeah, it was good to watch.
Yeah. I think this has been a great party.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people here, but it doesn't feel too packed.
Yeah. So when you think back about those 50 years, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't see how they did it.
How long have you been married?
18 years. And sometimes it's challenging, but we get through it. And think of 50 years. That's a long time of being with each other.
Yeah. Maybe one more. Congratulations.
I have my water. Yeah. Congratulations to Mom and Dad.
Yeah, you did a great job. You did a great job. Good.
Okay.
And maybe all three of us?
Oh, I know. I thought of something, too.
You thought of something?
Okay.
Yeah, I thought
Okay. We've had lots of pictures with the three of us like this.
Remember the time that we were going to have the picture taken for our parents and your parents up at the lake?
Oh, yes.
The professional picture with Mr. Clagus.
Yes, oh, yes.
Yeah. So we went. So we didn't tell them where we were going. We just went up and had it done. And Mr. Clagus is like a perfectionist. So literally, he's having Tina like move her finger like this, and you just don't do it in like an hour. It takes like 3 or 4 hours to do. So Cynthia had basketball practice. She was supposed to go to the gym, I think, with Carolyn and practice. And it wasn't like for the team, it was in the summer, like just extra practice. So we were late getting back, and Cynthia got in a lot of trouble, and she couldn't dare say anything. So, we were like, sorry, I can't remember what we said, why we were home late. But Carolyn was really mad that Cynthia was late to go shoot baskets. And then at Christmas time, when they opened up the present, Cynthia was like, remember when you yelled at me because we were late for this is what we were doing? And then Carolyn was like, oh, I'm sorry. And it was so funny. So that was, I was just thinking about that the other day.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good times at the lake. Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
And I remember Scruffy knocking you down because you guys only had 2 swings in the backyard. And you were the littlest, and so their dog Scruffy was a big Airedale, and we were faster than she was because she was the littlest one. Yeah, so we would take off running, and Scruffy would knock Tina down, and we would get the swings, and Tina would come up, and there would be no swing, and she would cry, or she would have to take a nap. This was the worst thing we probably ever did. She would be looking out the window, and we'd be like, hi, Tina, you have to take a nap, ha-ha, and Tina would be crying and so mad, and we would be laughing, and then Carolyn would come. She would hear, I think, and she would come and tell us to get away and quit bothering her.
Yeah. I remember making the leaf houses over in Wade's yard.
Yes,
and
in your backyard too.
Yes, and I don't know, I would always get pushed out into the room I didn't want.
Of the leaf house?
Yes. I would make my room and then you guys would take over.
When we had the lilac bushes right between our houses, and we would divide them up into rooms. And Cynthia liked to get everything out and set it up, and then she didn't want to play anymore. Mm-hmm. So she'd be like, well, I like to set everything up, but I don't want to play. And Tina and I'd be like, get so mad. And I remember when you guys would fight, you guys would like slap and pinch and like, do you remember that? Yeah, because Tina would never want to pick up. And so Carolyn would be like, Tina, you pick up. And Tina'd be like taking one like blanket and dragging it. And Cynthia and I'd be carrying all the stuff in, and Tina'd be going down the stair with one thing, and we'd get all mad at her. Yeah, you guys would slap each other and pinch and hit. And I was like, dang. Because my brothers and sisters were older, so I didn't have that.
Yeah.
Love and hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times. So,
that's it.
We're all married.
Well, been married a long time. We still have many more
How many
years
years
left to
have you
go.
been married?
24.
24.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been married 18.
Yeah.
You guys got married the same year?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids love to come to your house. In fact, Christoph was asking when we were going again because you're so much fun to hang out with. And he wants to go to the trampoline place again.
I do too. I do too.
Have you taken her there?
No, I haven't.
All right,
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
We could talk forever.
So okay, maybe say your name.
I'm Austin Grieve,
Who are your parents?
Tina, and Jay.
Grieve.
Yeah.
And how do you know Ken and Carolyn?
They're my grandpa and grandma.
And so when you think about going to Grandma and Grandpa's house, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know.
They put you to work?
Yeah.
Doing what?
Weeding and mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
And no matter how much you complain, grandma always wins.
She does.
Yeah.
And what about sleeping outside?
I don't really remember that.
Do you remember sleeping in a cot?
Oh yeah, I do that. It was okay.
Yeah. What about the parades?
They're okay.
What do you do?
Whatever she wants me to do.
Such as?
Whether it's walking or riding or driving and all that stuff.
Dressing up?
Yep.
Congratulations to 50 years, huh?
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good job.
Well, the first time I met them was at the football game at the end zone. And Ken finally presented us with a frozen salmon,
Oh, yeah.
all wrapped up in newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't have any feeling then of what his attitude about engineers were, but finally I found out.
Yeah.
But that's about all I remember. We saw him occasionally in the Bend area once, and then you moved up to Enterprise. That was maybe before you were born. I don't know. So, and we visited a few times up there, but not many.
Do you remember coming to their house for Christmas?
Pardon?
You came to their house for Christmas, their new house.
Well,
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
that's later.
Yeah.
That everybody remembers that.
Yeah, that was.
And that was an interesting time too, because so many generations were involved there. But that's where you really should have the name tags with family tree on them.
Yes.
So that's the difficulty I have with these family get-togethers.
How long were you and Aunt Julianne married?
We were 60 years and 4 months.
Is that right? Well, congratulations.
So Ken has a few more years to go.
Yes, he does. Yes.
But they got a late start too.
Yeah.
Your
Well,
folks
and,
didn't.
and then too, Julianne was retired for 35 years, so they got a little time to catch up with that one.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm glad you came.
Well, we would like coming.
Thank you.
Just to keep track of things.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.